State violence and abuse of power can act as the final tipping point for radicalization. Now, those are the words of the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres at a counter-terrorism conference that's being held in Kenya. He's urged member states to acknowledge and address factors that lead to terrorism. Well, the BBC's Ferdinand Omondi reports.
This is the first UN Prevention and Counter-Terrorism Conference where all member states have been invited, and the UN Secretary General took the opportunity to remind the leaders present that terrorism does not arise from a vacuum. He cited bad governance and exclusion as some of the factors that lead to radicalization. He also praised the role of women in fighting inequality, which he also said could lead to conflict, and then he passionately spoke on the need for more financing.
I deeply believe that African peace enforcing and counter-terrorism operations must have strong and clear mandates by the UN Security Council, backed by sufficient, predictable and sustainable financial support, namely through assessed contributions.
The use of non-enforcement measures is also being discussed here, and Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta spoke of the country's reintegration program where they're trying to bring back former radicalized citizens back into the fold, a measure he says has so far been successful.
Over the last 3 years, Kenya has prioritized this area by implementing legal and policy tools, in addition to working closely with local groups and civil society. Already, we have seen positive results from our endeavors, including hundreds of individuals, many of them returning terrorist fighters, turning away from terrorism, and leading the fight to similarly rescue others who remain trapped in the throes of extremism.
Tomorrow, it is the youth who take center stage, and for the better part of the morning, they will be discussing how to cooperate with governments and regional organizations in order to strengthen resilience. Ferdinand Omondi, BBC News, Nairobi.
Well, the UN Secretary General spoke to the BBC about the fight against terror in the Sahel region. He says the root causes of terror are complex.
In Africa, we have today a serious problem. If one looks at the Sahel, that is probably the most sensitive region, you see terrorism spreading, and you see that both the security mechanism that is in place is not sufficiently strong. And I would advocate for African forces with a stronger mandate from the Security Council and with assessed contributions, predictable funding to be able to fight terrorism more effectively than what happens today. Second, you see that the climate change drought is evolving in the Sahel. You see that development has enormous gaps in the Sahel. And so, because the security mechanism in place is not effective, and because the development problems and the climate change aggravation are having the impacts they have, terrorism is spreading. It started in Mali, it moved to Burkina Faso, and now even the countries of the coast are worried because they see terrorism coming close to Ghana, close to Benin, close to Cote d'Ivoire. So there is a lot to be done to be more effective in cracking down against terrorists and more effective in the prevention. And prevention is development, prevention is human rights, prevention is mediation among communities, prevention is the capacity to enter in dialogue with young people and explain what is the true value of Islam or of Christianity or other religion that is so dramatically misinterpreted by those that promote terrorism.